Is it going? Okay. Hi, thank you so much for doing this for me. I'd like to start off where you just introduce each other in a casual way. So, Jess, if you could please introduce Elisa, and then I'll ask Elisa to introduce Jess.
Sure. Elisa is one of my literary agents for my YA rom-coms, and she's super lovely to work with. She lives in France, which is cool. And yeah, you're my agent. That's what we do.
And Jess is a publicist at HarperCollins and an incredible author of romance and much more.
Excellent. Okay. So, the next question is, what is your origin story? Like, how did you end up here today? So, does one of you want to go first?
You can go first, Elisa, if you want.
Okay. So I was an author in France where we don't have literary agents, and I realized that whatever is happening in the market in France is not working for authors. And so I started looking into how it was going everywhere else in the world, and I found out about literary agents. And so I reached out to Nicole, our agency president, and she offered me an internship, and then I stayed on.
And then for me, on the side of being a publicist, I started because I actually was a YA book blogger with one of my friends from high school, and we kind of just like enjoyed shouting about books online and what we really liked. And eventually it did gain traction, and that's when publicists started to pitch me for things to cover books. And that's when I learned that there's like a whole nother side of the publishing world, like not like I knew about editors, I knew how books got on the shelves, but like there was someone whose job was just to reach out to people and get them excited about books. And that's what I do for my job every day. And I've had my job for 3 years, and I still skip to work. It's like a running joke in my office that like I will never get tired of what I do. I really love it. And on the writer side, I've just, been writing since I was very, very young. As a book blogger, I was really into YA romance, and I wanted to give it a try on writing my own, and that's what happened.
Oh, and I'm so glad you did.
Me too.
All right. So this one is for Jess. And this can be in whatever context you want it to be. But what's the story behind the story of you becoming an author with a book releasing soon? Like, what's the story behind the story of the book?
Behind We've Hit Turbulence, or how I became a published author?
Either one, in whatever context you want.
I will say We've Hit Turbulence. I can do both because We've Hit Turbulence was a short one. I'm afraid of flying, like deathly, which is ironic because my book involves a plane. And so I was on a flight. My brother lives in Hawaii, lived in Hawaii, and I was on a flight next to him. I was on a flight to him, sitting next to my sister, and she made a joke like, "Thank God I'm the one sitting next to you, so you're not freaking out someone you don't know," because I'm so afraid of flying. And it got me thinking like about stories of people that get like bad seatmates on a plane, and then it had me thinking like not just a bad seatmate, but what if your seatmate is someone you don't get along with, but somebody you knew, where there's history there? And that's kind of where I got the idea to have my main character be on this cross country 13-hour flight, very uncomfortable because you can't go anywhere, you're stuck there. But have her sit next to her ex who she never got over. So that's kind of where I got that idea. And in terms of getting here as a published author, I majored in creative writing in undergrad at Fordham University. And then COVID hit, and I still really wanted to write. I always wanted an MFA, but I wasn't sure. Pre-COVID times, I didn't know about online MFAs, so I didn't know it was even something I could do because I didn't want to give up the opportunity to work in publishing, to be taking night classes and all that. And I found SNHU, and I loved it, and I decided to do it. And then my final semester was the first semester that they did a pitch session, like a lightning round pitch session with some agents. And I met with Marissa, and I gave her a pitch for my book, and the rest is history.
And then right after that, it's like, Elisa, you have to read this. And like, I think right away she was like, oh, I want this story. Like,
I know it was fate. It was definitely fate.
all right.
I was on vacation, I was at the beach, and she was like, "You need to read this now."
I
Okay.
love that. It's a good beach read. It's a good vibe for the beach.
It was.
Yeah, I like that.
I love this. Okay. So, Elisa, can you tell us a little bit of your perspective, like from the agency side, and how Jess ended up here with us today with a book deal? Like, what were the steps you had to do on your end?
Okay, so the first thing we had to do was make sure that the book was ready to go out on submission. So you and I both did editorial passes. So we made sure that everything was ready in terms of content, but also in terms of typos and everything else. So we did a few rounds with Jess. And then we had to make sure we had the perfect pitch to be able to appeal to editors right away, and make sure we had the perfect list of editors who would be the best fits for the story. And then we got lucky, because even though we need to have a perfect book, we also need to have luck, because we need to make sure that the editor is currently looking for this type of books and just connecting with the books just like we did at Age.
Okay, so here are the subjective writing questions. Right? What is the most important part of writing a story?
In my non-professional opinion, I feel like the characters, it sounds like a cheap answer, but it's true. Like when I'm reading a book, if I don't connect with the character, like I don't care. Like I can't get myself to care about the book. I always come up with the characters first before I even come up with their plot, because that to me is the most important part, is really knowing your characters. I often sit with them for a while before I even start writing. So like I have a new story idea in my head that I came up with like 2 weeks ago, and I have to sit with these characters and like chew it over in my head and really get to know them as people before I can even start to work on an outline or talk to you guys about some ideas for it. Like I have to know who they are, so I know what types of decisions they'd make in the story, and I can like write and be like, this isn't authentic to what this person would do. So I need to really know them before I can know that much about them and make those choices when I'm writing.
Okay, Lisa, what about for you?
And it's kind of the same, and I would add that I need to connect with the story on a personal level to be able to feel invested, and that goes a lot through the characters. So I definitely agree that the characters have, you've got to feel that they're deep enough to feel like people that could exist, and not just, that's the only way to avoid the cliche and the only way to make me feel invested in the story.
Okay. That was super helpful. And what is your favorite part about writing?
This is an unpopular opinion because I talked to my writer friends about this. I like first drafts. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people are scared of the blank page. I love that I can just like get it out and write and be as messy as I want, and then I clean it up later. I'm currently in the clean it up later phase for the other book I'm working on, so I'm regretting it now. But in the moment, like it's just nice to just write, and if it doesn't make total sense, like that's okay. Like you can fix it later, but just to sit there and just let the words flow, like that to me is my favorite part of the writing process. A lot of people don't like it because it's scary with the big empty page. You don't know where you're going, but I really like to just like get it all out, like the spaghetti on the wall approach, like just write as much as you can, and you can clean it up later, you can tweak it later, you can fix the inconsistencies later, but just getting it out and getting it down the first time is a really rewarding feeling for me.
I do like it too, even though I know it's popular. But what I love the most about writing is when I get to make the connection between two scenes or two people, something that was missing, and then suddenly it's clicking and everything makes sense. That's when everything is just worth it at this point.
Yeah, Jess, I think that is a very unpopular opinion.
None of my other writing friends like first drafts. I don't know why I like it so much. I think it's because the fear of failure has not set in yet. Like when I'm revising a book and I'm looking and I'm like, oh, like this part, I'm like, this, does the timing make sense? Like, has it really, like, it's been 5 days. What day of the week would it be between these scenes? Like, or is, like, I'm writing and I'm like, wait, did I mention this earlier? Do I have to like fill it in and feed it in earlier? Like all of those little logistics questions. A lot of people like that. It's like a puzzle to them. I don't love it. To me, revisions is probably the harder part of my writing. I like that I can just, with the first draft, I feel a lot freer. Like I can just write it and worry about the logistics later. Then later comes and I'm regretting that immensely. But in the moment, it's definitely nice to just feel like I can just write it. I can always fix it later. You can't edit an empty page. So,
All right. So then after the favorite part, what is your least favorite part about writing?
revisions. Definitely.
I think mine too. It's just when you're writing the first draft, you're making progress. And when you're revisions for the first time, just feel like you're spending hours and just undoing what you thought was work in the first place. That's frustrating. I think that's pretty much the case for a lot of people. Yeah,
Yes.
revision.
I think I told you guys this. So when we put my book, We Fit Turbulence, out on sub, it was written in, I originally wrote it in a single timeline. And then as I was revising it before I gave it to you guys, I was like, because it was a NaNoWriMo project. So I wrote it in one timeline. It was a quick 30-day thing. And then I finished it and I was like, I feel like it needs another timeline because you really need to flesh out their past. And so I spent an entire weekend. I went to a hotel and I did myself a mini writing retreat and I wrote like 20,000 words and like added a second timeline to the whole book. And then we went on sub, and then our editor that bought it was like, I really love this, but I think the book should be in one timeline. And so, and I agree, like now, like once we finished it, it was right. I think I needed to do it that way and write the second timeline so I could really get to know them better and figure out which parts of those past scenes I want to feed into current day. So it still was helpful, but it definitely was really frustrating because I felt like I was walking back all the progress I did. But then when I finished and looked at it, I wasn't walking it back. It made the book better. But I do agree. It feels like I was undoing like everything that I had just done. But it really, the book was definitely better off for it. And it was a good exercise because I did learn more about the character's past. And maybe not every single flashback scene made it into the final draft, but the history of the characters and stuff like kind of was built out in different ways that way. So it was definitely helpful. But I do agree that it feels like you're undoing things, even though you're not. It feels like you're walking back on your progress.
But as an agent, it's my favorite part, revising.
Yeah.
You know, to their full potential. But as an author, that's what I like the least, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love revisions as an author. So I think the first draft is always just me, and I always say this to everybody I speak with. It's me telling myself the story because I don't do a lot of pre-planning, which I probably should, but I don't know my characters. I don't sit with them. So everything I put on the page is like me learning about the story. And then after my agent gives me back all the revisions of like, this makes no sense, I love it because I feel like I have direction. Like, it's not like I like to be told what to do, but I kind of like to be told what to do. Like, here's my
No, I
idea.
get
Now
it.
tell me how to do it. So, I thought you were gonna say like synopses or something for your least favorite part.
I think the query letter was probably the hardest thing I did in the MFA program. Honestly, I think condensing a story and yourself as a writer down into one page, it's doable clearly, but it's difficult. I think that was the thing, probably the project I actually struggled with the most in my MFA program is I probably rewrote my query letter like 30 times.
Really?
Yeah, I just like, I'm always either an underwriter or an overwriter. I'm never the right amount of space writer ever. And so for the query letter, I was like a severe overwriter. And then when I went back and had to cut stuff, it was really difficult for me because like, you know, like I have a lot of experience as a publicist and a book blogger and like a lot of things that I thought were helpful for agents to know, but I was like, I have to squeeze it all into one page, but I don't want it to just be like this dump of everything. Like I gotta try to make it sound eloquent, but I also only have one page to do it all, and explain my book and explain myself as a writer. So I did it. I mean, and the program was really great, and my professors were really great with like reading it over with me. But that definitely, I think, I struggled with the most. I would rather write a 300-page book than a one-page query letter because you have so much to squeeze in such a small amount of time. That's why I don't write short stories either. I'm not good at it. I feel like I can't get all the info I need to get in such a short amount of time.
Lisa, do you have a response to that?
No, it makes complete sense. I mean, I prefer writing synopsis because, I mean, you know, you can tell everything that's going on in the story. A query, you have to make sure that you're focusing on just one or maybe two plot points. And that's so hard to do because you just finished writing your novel. You're ready to send to agents. You're excited. You want to make sure they know everything that's unique about your book, but you can't because you have to sum it up in like 2 or 3 paragraphs and go all the way and explain everything that's so special about your book. You have to focus on one thing. And that's so hard to do. I understand.
This is only sort of related, but it's kind of really unrelated. But I remember once I did get a query in email format. It's much different. And just out of curiosity, I put it into Word and it was something like 2,000 words. So I have received a 2,000 word query letter before.
That's not allowed. That is not allowed. No.
Okay. So, what is something you wish you knew before you started writing?
That it's okay if it takes longer than other writers. Like, I work with a lot of authors at work that are big romance writers that churn out 3 or 4 books a year. Tessa Bailey, who I'm her publicist, she is incredible. She can churn out a polished draft in a month and a half. And for me, like I remember like seeing that and being like, am I a bad writer because it takes me like 2 or 3 months to like really clean it? And like I also have to realize I work a full-time job too. I don't have writing as a full-time job, so my writing does often take longer because I am at work for a lot of the time, and I work in Manhattan, so I have a big commute. So my writing is usually evenings and weekends. So I cannot, without giving up my sanity, I cannot write a fully complete, ready to put on submission draft in a month and a half. Like I just can't do that. So I wish I knew, like when I first started, like I felt a lot of like imposter syndrome. Like, am I not a good writer? Am I meant to be a writer? Like, is it supposed to take me this long? And then there's people who it takes them like 3 to 4 years to finish a draft. So write at the pace that's good for you and don't compare yourself to other writers, because it doesn't mean you're not a good writer if you're taking more or less time than other people.
What I tell all the authors that I work with is that you don't only need to be talented and to have a very good book, you also need good timing, which is completely out of your hands, and that you can, have written the best epic fantasy book. If it's not a good time in the market for epic fantasy, you're not going to be able to sell it for now. And it sucks to hear, and it's something that you're not totally prepared for, because sometimes you think you just need to have a perfectly written book, but it's not always enough, and it's not fair, I know, but that's something that I like to tell authors, because you don't expect that.
That's so true. I like the thing about the timing. It's like what I like to read and what I want to sign for clients is not necessarily what's in the market now. So, all right.
And
So what is it like? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Elisa. Go ahead.
yeah, one thing I did tell my authors once is that even at the agent step, I did sign an author once, and I had another author who had sent me a project that felt a bit similar, and I had asked for revisions. And they were like, "Yeah, we're not so sure about the revisions, so I'm gonna see if I want to do them." And they emailed me 6 months later with the revision. I signed the other author the day before, with a similar story. So if they had sent the revision like a week before, I might have signed them instead of the other author. I don't know. We can't tell. But timing is definitely huge. And that was the biggest example for it, because it's bad luck for one and good luck for the other. But you can't have two very similar stories at the same time. And the same for editors. If they just signed the perfect, small town romance about an ex-boyfriend coming back, something like that, they can't sign the second one right away. And if you send it at that time, they're going to pass for that specific reason. And they wouldn't have passed if you sent it a month before or a year later. So timing is definitely big.
So true. Okay, so what is it like being in the publishing industry?
I love it. I've wanted to work in publishing since I was very young, since I even knew what it was. I wanted to work in publicity specifically for HarperCollins specifically. So I am very fortunate that I am working my dream job and I love it. I think as an author working in publishing, it's really interesting because I see both sides of it. I see the behind the scenes that the authors I work with at work don't necessarily see every day because I'm behind it too. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really cool. I think it helped me get a grip, like a lot of authors, you research the market and you research like what's going on. But I work in the market, so I feel like I really do have that knowledge of like what's hot right now, and on the publicity side, like what types of things are journalists looking for right now, what kinds of like are essays doing well right now, or profiles or reviews. Like I feel like I get this extra layer of understanding as an author because I do also live and work in the behind the scenes every day.
It's a dream. It's a dream. You get to do your dream job and wake up every day knowing that you're going to spend the day working with incredible authors who were all so different and bring everything you've ever dreamed of to the publishing world. So it's a dream.
I agree.
Oh, okay. And so like what is one thing or what one thing about your writing journey or agenting journey did you not expect?
I really lucked out. I did not have to query for very long at all. I think our session that we did, the sprint session, I think I had queried for like 2 weeks before that and only sent out like 10 or 15. Like I know a lot of writers, querying takes a lot, it takes years, it takes a lot of different queries. I did not expect that speed session was going to lead to this, to one of my biggest dreams coming true. That was probably the most exciting thing that has ever happened in my life, ever.
Kind of similar. I didn't expect for, that one email and internship during COVID to turn out to be, my agency for now and my career. So that was definitely the unexpected. I just thought I was going to discover what the job was, and then they were going to send me my way, and just no, just stayed on. So definitely didn't expect to make a career out of it so soon. I didn't expect for Nicole to be so trusting and let me, open that agency in France as well, which, allows me to represent authors in France and be that kind of representation and champion that I didn't have. So didn't expect it to be so grand. So definitely loving it.
Oh, these are all good expectations. I didn't expect getting rejections to hurt so much. So like if when I'm sending a project out to an editor and I'm like totally in love with the project and the editor comes back and I know they're so overburdened with their time and they're just like, not for me. And I'm just like, it's like a stab in the heart. I did not expect to take it so personally. I was like, yeah, I can totally do this. Like, so they're going to reject me. Like, I got rejected or they passed when I was an author. I totally understand. But as an agent, oh, it's like a knife to the gut.
I think something we did that really helped me when I was on submission is I can take the criticism, but I can't take it all the time. So I think like what really helped is like you guys know this obviously when we put my book out on submission, like you guys had the Excel grid where you would update the passes and all and who had it and everything, and I had a link to that and I could check when I felt like I was in a space that I wanted to look, because like some people I know don't want to know at all. Some people want to get an email every time there's a pass, and like I personally was like, I don't want an email like if I'm having like a crappy work day and then I get an email that an editor passed on my book. Like I didn't, like if there's some days that I just didn't need to know that. So I really liked that we had that grid that I was able to pop in and look as I felt I was in the mood to find out. I think that really helped me because it gave me I have no control over who buys my book. Like I had no control over who was interested. I can't force somebody to be interested, but I had control over when I could look at that information and when I felt ready to look at it. And I think that was advice that an author friend of mine, El Gonzalez Rose, gave to me. And I'm really glad that I did that because I was able to look when I felt like I wanted to, but I didn't have it I wasn't bombarded with rejections when I was not in the headspace that I wanted to get it.
That's a really good point. All right. And so now what is the best writing advice you've ever received?
I think it was that you don't have to write every day. One of my professors at Fordham, Elisa James, she writes every day, and I just like was like, well, she's so successful, and I have, if ever all these big writers that seem to write every day, like, and she pointed out like people whose full-time job is writing can write every day. People who's not, like, it's not a failure if you don't. But any words is like a step forward. So I have specific days, like I write a lot on the weekends. I'll have specific nights where I'm like, okay, tonight I'm going to sit down and write. But on a really busy work day, if I just squeak out like 2 sentences on the walking to the subway, like to me that is still moving forward, and I don't need to sit and bang out 50 pages every night to be a successful writer. I can make a schedule that works for me, and it's not a failure if I'm having a day where I'm not feeling it or I'm really busy and I just need to like focus on something else.
Completely agreed. And you don't have to hit a very specific word count like for every day, because a lot of it goes into research. And even if you just get to know your characters better and you don't write at all, but that is still work and that is still writing. And that's important too in making sure your story is great.
Great. And so this one is kind of like a perception thing. So what is something that you think that emerging authors misunderstand about writing now that you've reached this point in your writing journey or agenting journey?
I think from what I've seen from classmates and writing friends is that they think a book needs to be absolutely 800% perfect before you start querying. It needs to be done, it needs to be polished, it needs to make sense. But I know people that will like go through like 10 rounds of like beta readers and revisions and just keep doing it. And I'm like, if your book, like, when I submitted my book to you, it was done. It was edited, it had been passed through, it had been cleaned, but it still needed work. But that's part of what your agent does with you, is they help you fix it. It was ready for querying, wasn't ready for sub. And I think like a lot of people think that's the same thing. I don't think it is. I think the book needs to be done and polished and made sense and passed through a few times. But if it's not completely ready to start submitting to editors the next day, that's it's not supposed to be. Your agents are supposed to work with you on that. It doesn't need to be as complete. It doesn't need to be ready to be put on a shelf for you to be ready to reach out to agents.
Exactly, because you're going to have the agent say, and then you're going to have the editors and copy editors looking for it. And I would also say that if you think your book is absolutely perfect and you're not open to suggestions to make it perfect, to make it even better and have it reach its potential, you're not ready to query, because you are going to have to edit again. If not with your agent, with an editor. No editor is going to take a book just like it and just no revisions. If you think your book is absolutely perfect and you're not okay to revise anything, traditional publishing is not going to be the way to go, at least for now.
Yeah. And like adding on to that, I think another like advice, like once you have an agent, once you have an editor, once you get signed and you're like actually working with like a publicist, marketer, my biggest advice that I always wish I can tell people is like, trust these people. I know that you know your book better than anybody else, which is true. But you know, like I have a lot of authors that are really nervous to turn things over to me, or like they like to trust your publicist. Your publicist knows the outlets that are interested in your work. Like, of course, give suggestions if you have connections. Like, do that. But like, I feel like there is a lot of new authors who are nervous because, like, you know, your book is your baby, and then you're turning it over to these people who you don't know yet. Your editor, your agent, your marketer, your publicist, and like you just have to trust that they're going to know what to do. And like that, like what you said about, you know, like your editor will have notes, your agent will have notes. Like, trust these people. Of course, if your gut is telling you, like if your agent is telling you to change something about a book and you feel really strongly about it, voice that, talk to them. But for the most part, like these people do it all day. Like, you guys work on books all day. I pitch books all day. Like, listen to the suggestions of the people who do this for a living. Of course, have your own opinions and have your own suggestions, but it's not failing your book to sometimes take advice that you maybe didn't think of. These people know what's going on. We know the industry in and out. And I feel like a lot of new authors, it takes a while to build that trust and for them to realize like these people do know what they're doing and they do it all day. So just trust the team. Of course, get to know them, voice your opinions, but you're in good hands, especially when you're in one of those like big traditional publishers that does it all day. We know what to do and you can trust them.
Yeah, that's key. I think one of the things, and I've said this before, is like, I know if I want to sign somebody based on their voice within like the first 10 pages to a chapter. And then it's just, do I like them as a person? Do they seem like somebody I would want in my life for the duration of, everything? And then if I have a vision for their story, then of course I read the full story, but I'm not really worried, to your point about having it be perfect. If there's typos, grammar, even like a plot hole, because I know if that author is talented enough and their personality meshes, they can fix that. Be like, hey, did you mean to change his eyes to green halfway through, or switch to first person? Like, it's for me, it's all about the voice. So, okay. So now please share with us some parting words of wisdom about anything. This is like one of the second to last questions.
Find an accountability partner. That has been my biggest saving grace with writing. I have a friend. It can be somebody online if you don't know someone in person, but I do have a friend from home that really loves to write, and we meet every Sunday, come hell or high water, unless there's a holiday or somebody's sick, at a local cafe, and we write for 2 hours, working on our own books, headphones on, like we're not chatting with each other. But it really keeps me accountable, because if it's just myself and I wake up and I'm like, I don't feel like going, then like sometimes I'm lazy and I don't go. But if I'm like, oh, Jason's waiting for me, he got up and got there, I need to go too, it kind of like really just pushes me to keep accountable. Find a friend online or in person, set a time that you guys like, okay, 5 p.m. on Thursday, we're going to get on Zoom, we're going to go to the coffee shop and we're going to work on our books, like somebody else to kind of like, you push each other and keep each other accountable. That's kept me moving forward on the days where I felt lazy or not up to it, for sure.
What I would say to an author who is actively querying and looking for an agent is that if you get an offer of representation and you have a call with an agent and something doesn't feel right, it doesn't click, there are red flags, anything, it's okay to turn down that representation. And no agent is much better than a bad agent, because they can take you back several years in your career, and it can be very difficult to go back from there. Definitely make sure you trust your gut.
That's excellent. All right. And the last question is, where is the best place to connect with you online? Like, where are you the most active if somebody wanted to reach out?
I'm on Twitter and Instagram, both at Jess Cozzi Writes. I definitely use Twitter more often, which is an unpopular opinion, I know. I'm trying to get better at Instagram, but I'm on Twitter most of the time.
Exactly the same answer.
I'm not on Twitter at all anymore. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.